Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and State Farm. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb. Welcome, everyone, to MotorWeek podcast number 210. I'm John Davis, along with our staff here in Studio C at MotorWeek World Headquarters. We're joined today by writer-producer Brian Robinson.
Hello, John.
Road test producer Ben Davis.
Hello.
And assistant road test producer Kyle Scanlon.
Hello.
And our online content coordinator and the producer of our podcast, Greg Carlos.
Oh, boy. Here
in person. All right, we've got several cars to talk about. We've got a lightning round, a viewer question from Steve. We'll see if we have any rant and raves. But let's start right at the top. 2020 Cadillac XT6. Greg, you've got up close and personal with it. 3.6-liter V6, 310 horsepower, 9-speed automatic. What else can you tell us?
Well, this is their 3-row crossover, which is now the, XT4, XT5, XT6, third XT model. It bridges the gap between the XT5 and the Escalade, which everybody is very familiar with. It is...
Is it similar to the Acadia?
It's Traverse, right?
Is it Traverse or Acadia?
I'm not sure. One of them has longer wheelbase.
The Traverse is
longer
it's Traverse.
Than the
Traverse is stronger than the Acadia.
I haven't been in it, but just from seeing it sitting there, it looked more like the Traverse than the Acadia.
Yeah, I'm sure it's Traverse, but so I actually spent some time in it in D.C. and then was able to drive it back here to our headquarters. But in that time, I spent some time in the second row, which I usually don't get to do, but I was pretty shocked at how much room there was.
Greg is very tall.
Yeah, very tall, Greg. A lot of headroom back there. As far as width-wise, no problems. Leg room was great. Third row, it's hard to justify any third row, especially if you're above average height. This was no worse, no better than any other ones. If you need to get people back there, you certainly can. There's USB ports everywhere, not just the traditional Type A's, but the Type C's, which, I don't
even know what that is.
It's just as we progress in technology, the Type C's are the way we're going. A lot of standard features, a lot of standard safety features. So it is a General Motors product. A big thing with them is like sound deadening. So it's quiet inside. Part of that is with standard active noise cancellation, which is actually like using noise to cancel out noise. If you've ever had Bose headphones, and this is a Bose system, you'll understand. And then there's things like available night vision. Let's see. There's an air ionizer, which we've seen in like Mercedes and BMW. So they're definitely trying to pack that luxury in. But it comes at a cost. The one I drove home was $71,000 for the Sport.
Did it look that much different than other GM SUVs built on that same chassis? And I'm thinking particularly of the Buick Enclave. I mean, did you feel like you were in something special? That's
an easy answer. No, it feels like a GM. I don't want to make it sound like it's a terrible experience in there, because that's not the case at all. It's very familiar to GM. I don't think it really separates itself that much from a GMC or a Chevrolet.
The rumor is that it's a temporary vehicle or short-term vehicle. They've got something else coming that will replace it, but they had to fill the niche right away.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, and I get that impression.
And it is the Traverse that it's closest to as far as structure.
Right. It certainly looks different. I mean, it's got that huge Cadillac grill up front.
The style department for sure. But just there's a certain feel. I can't really put my finger on it or come up with the words for it.
I know exactly what you're talking about. When I saw it at the auto show, I got in it and I looked around, and you looked at things like the door pockets and some of the switchgear, and you thought, unlike Lincoln, who is basically every model they bring out, they have pretty much made sure there's absolutely nothing in common to the Ford counterpart that you touch and feel. GM hasn't quite gotten there yet. It doesn't seem.
Yeah. So as far as driving it goes, it's comfortable. The like you mentioned before, 9-speed automatic transmission, which I've found no faults with. It's really smooth, and even downshifting down a couple of gears wasn't a big deal, which it can be for transmissions with that many gears. So I mentioned the Sport trim, which is what we have right now. It actually has its own all-wheel drive system that you can't get on the premium luxury, which uses it's a twin clutch unit that can distribute torque individually to each wheel. So it just enhances some.
I think that's a first for that chassis.
Yeah,
Is it?
It's not.
I don't know. I thought the Acadia had something similar.
It may have.
Okay.
Anyway, if you want that all-wheel drive system, you have to get it, and it's standard on the Sport model.
I think they were smart to do it. It's a good-looking vehicle. They needed something in that case because a lot of people that want 3 rows don't want to go up to a big body and frame Escalade.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's probably not going to be there forever in this form, but I do think it's a pretty good-looking vehicle. Yeah. I don't think you can fault it for that.
And 71 in that price in that size class is not crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel maybe
except for us because we're still thinking. I mean, I see Cadillac; they want to compete against Mercedes and BMW and all that, and we're still thinking, up-level GM divisions.
I don't know. I think Cadillac buyers want the prestige of that Escalade, though.
That's why it sells so well.
Yeah, I'm not sure they're looking for a non-3-row.
Especially with the rumor out
non-Escalade
now that they're talking about the redesigned Escalade may include a 400-mile pure EV version.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Whoa!
And one last comment is we've all mentioned the Cadillac Q system over the years, which is gone, and they have this new system which includes the center controller that we've seen in other luxury models.
Is it better?
Yeah, oh yeah. I used it yesterday, and it's much nicer. There is a touchscreen. You're free to use the touchscreen if you want to, but there's that whole idea of redundancy, which is nice, and everything works well. And I think it doesn't have a massive screen like we've seen in other car makes, but it doesn't really bother me as long as it works well, and it does.
Let's move on now to across town to Ford Motor Company. 2020 Ford Explorer, a very widely anticipated vehicle. Kyle, you've had the first experience with it. They've got a wide range of engines, including a hybrid. It's moved back to body-on-frame. It's a unibody, but it still has it's a unibody. I just got everything completely crossed up. It's moved back to a truck-like layout of being a rear drive architecture from the front drive architecture they had before. It does not have a frame. It's still a unibody. Mm-hmm. Tell us more before I get myself into more trouble.
So was out in Oregon and got to drive around all the models from the hybrid model to the ST to the standard base XLT, all that good stuff. I spent most of my time in the hybrid model since kind of most people were curious about that.
And that's going to be the standard fitment for the police version as well.
I believe so. And I got to say, it surprised me. I thought the hybrid model was going to be, relatively underpowered and just underwhelming kind of as a whole, and it really wasn't. And I got to drive it on the off-road course that they designed, and that's where it really surprised me. And with just up and down the hills through some swampy sections that they set up for us, and around some pitched corners that were, bringing the car over to 22 degrees, and the thing never felt like it was shaky or never felt like it was going to lose traction or get stuck anywhere. And definitely was impressed by the vehicle. I know due to some comments online, one of the things most people are upset about is the price point. The base model, just the bog standard, starts around $36,000.
And that's a 4-cylinder turbo.
Yes, that's a 4-cylinder turbo. But then when you start moving up, the hybrid model starts around $48,000. The ST model starts around $48,000. Starts around $48,000, and the ST model starts at $54,000. So if you want to see the comments, they're on the first drive video, and that's what people are saying. They're not too happy about it because people are assuming that they buy it at $54,000 for the ST model, and in 3 years it'll be worth half that. So that's the fear.
That's true with any
car.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hardly a point. But I think you look around and your run-of-the-mill 3-row SUV, without getting any special performance or luxury, starting mid to high 40s.
Yeah.
But that's usually pretty fully equipped, especially something like Kia or Hyundai.
Yeah, like if you were to move up to the XLT and really start throwing a lot of bells and whistles into it, it'll be about $43,000.
Driving dynamic wise, did you feel? I mean, this is a unibody with rear drive architecture, so it doesn't have the frame like all of the early Explorers did. Did you feel any difference in driving it than you would of any of the front-wheel drive vehicles that you drive here at MotorWeek and SUVs every day? Did something tell you that it's a different experience, or will people feel completely comfortable?
I think people will feel completely comfortable. It didn't really feel like it stepped away from any of the driving dynamic feels that you'd get in any other front base or front-wheel drive architectured vehicle. It was just good, to be honest.
So you think that's mostly because you're still dealing with a unibody? I mean,
probably.
Yeah. Any questions, anybody? How about rear seat, second and third row, leg room and so forth?
Yeah, second row is definitely plenty of room back there, very comfortable.
Did you crawl into the third row?
I did. I crawled into the second row, and I crawled into the third row, and I'm not the smallest guy in the world, and the third row was pretty cramped for a full-size adult. So,
was there anything special about how the seats moved to get you back there?
Not that I remember, but I apologize. It was quite a while ago at this point.
Okay. You're excused. Anybody else? Questions? I mean, this is a big deal vehicle. They've got this is it's kind of like their new star.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, do they discuss like anything about take rate or what they're expecting to sell the most of? Because the 3-liter EcoBoost is in the ST.
Yes.
And is it in anything else? Like, is it a detuned version anywhere else? Or like?
No, actually, the ST has its own specially tuned version that Ford Racing did.
2 different versions of the 3-liter.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
3 different. So then
the 3.3 hybrid, though, is not turboed.
No, it is not turbo.
And actually, don't they use that engine? I think they're also selling that 3.3 liter without the hybrid in like just fleet sales or something like that.
That I do not know the answer to.
Yeah, it's they seem to be trying to cover all of the bases. And what I think is notable about this is the fact that right out of the box they're offering a hybrid, because Ford has basically said they're going to offer some form of electrified model on every redesign they do.
I don't think the pricing's that bad. I mean, any 3-row crossover now is going to be $40,000 plus. So, if you want to spend the money on the ST, that's on you. You don't have to.
That's going to be something special anyway.
Which I think they want to limit sales on that to be like a Halo type vehicle, but I don't think the pricing's that bad myself.
Yeah, I didn't
Especially
think
when
it
you
was
consider
terrible.
it's going to get discounted like crazy, probably.
Probably.
I mean, that's the one thing that we sort of sometimes ignore, that some brands, like volume brands like Ford and Chevrolet, you tend to get much better dealer discounts than you would at some luxury brand from overseas. Okay, let's move on to another vehicle. It's sort of a sleeper that ends up being one of the last quote-unquote station wagons that you can buy, and it sells very, very well for Subaru. We're talking about the 2020 Subaru Outback. Ben, you've had first experience with it. Is it a legacy with a square back, or what is it?
That is a good question. I'm not sure if I went way north California to figure just that out, and we're in our 6th generation here in the Outback. It's super rigid now. We did an extensive amount of off-roading, and I was in the 2.5 liter for that. And while the numbers don't look super impressive on paper, 182 horsepower out of a 2.5 liter, the torque was in all the right places. And I tell you, the terrain that we crossed, it's more radical and longer than most Jeep events I've ever been on. We were off-road for like 2 hours. And we were
with stock tires, did they tell you?
Stock everything. We were scraping. It was weird because I believe they are Mercedes original tires, MO tires. They have the MO designation.
Oh, they do?
on them, so
Okay.
they're used on Mercedes. But, man, we're scraping the front of it up, scraping the back, almost taking paint off the sides, just beating them to death.
That's pretty unusual for
that's awesome.
Subaru. That's awesome.
It was pretty cool. I got awesome footage. Anyway, the 2.5 liter, it's got adequate power around town. The torque's right where you want it. It's not a barnstormer. If you want to go that route, the 2.4 turbo is definitely your cup of tea. I was most impressed on the Outback is it's got 18-plus gallon tank, and in the 2.5 liter, that gives you about a 600-mile range. Nice. And that's just awesome.
we have a fourth generation Outback, and I have to tell you, it's a terrific vehicle, and I'm sure it wouldn't even begin to measure up with some of the capabilities of this one. Very useful without basically getting obnoxious about it.
They don't get too radical in their redesigns. I mean, it's very evolutionary. It's just what Subaru people want.
Did you like the big screen, the big tablet?
I thought that big tablet was awesome. Looked straight out of a Tesla. It was easy to use, and there was really nicely placed redundant buttons. It still has its volume knob, which is awesome. And it incorporates into the HVAC system, but there's still buttons that you can push for changing your temperature, warmer or colder, which I think is great.
Yeah. Just
easy, quick buttons that you want. But yeah, I thought it was great. It looked awesome. Even the that is an optional unit, but even the base stereo looked pretty cool. It had just a split screen, but it still retained the same buttons.
Is the base unit much smaller, or how does it fit? Does it fit in the same area?
It fits in the same area, but it's two separate screens.
Oh, okay.
So it's like probably 2/3 of the way down. It's just a separate unit, but it still fits that same footprint. I only saw it in pictures. They didn't have one there for me to look at. But it looked good, and
they get a lot of use out of the Outback. It sells very, very well for them. So
why are they able to sell wagons when no one else can? What's so great?
That's a good question.
Well, because they call it a wagon, but it doesn't look any different than anybody else's SUV, in my opinion.
Just
honestly.
slightly lower.
Yeah, I mean, there's really not that much difference.
I mean, roof-wise, I'm not talking.
Am I crazy in saying that?
No, I mean, yeah.
No, when our household bought one, we were replacing a Volvo V70, and as soon as you put them side by side, you noticed how much beefier the Outback was. It was certainly taller than the Volvo, had more ground clearance. It just looked like a slightly shrunken SUV. So it's kind of like, it's not like the old family station wagon hugging the ground and 6 miles long. So it's pretty beefy.
But Subaru makes all those crossovers as well, but people still like the Outback.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, in my opinion, everybody else just started making stuff that looked like Outback and calling it something, not a station wagon.
That's pretty much close. Thanks, Ben. Let's move on now to our lightning round, where we've all got about 30 seconds or whenever we get tired to talk about an automotive topic. Here we go. Hyundai unveiled its redesigned Sonata Hybrid, and it comes with a solar roof to help charge the battery. Hyundai estimates it can extend driving range, get this, over 800 miles in a year, which equates to just over 2 miles per day. Is this a gimmick, or is this an early look at future how we keep electrified cars charged?
That's pretty awesome, but I must say that this, while it sounds new and awesome, Mazda Millennia had something like this back in the day.
There's been a couple of people with solar panels.
They've been integrating them into RVs.
They were like HVAC systems or something.
They've been integrating them into RVs, making entire roofs out of solar panels for a while now, just to charge the batteries, not for any type of hybrid. But yeah, it's absolutely the way to go. We'll use the space.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you think about it, you've got all that unused real estate, not only the roof, but many times over the trunk or the extended back of an SUV. Yeah, you can put in a panoramic roof, but why do you really need all that glass? I must say I'm not a huge panoramic roof fan, because most people drive around with only 2 people in the vehicle. Seems like wasted use of the space.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to get on them now because it's like just 2 miles a day, and that's if it's sunny out, But it's just a necessary step we need to take.
Mm-hmm. Suppose you park it. Yeah, this is a question which I don't know the answer to. If you're parked, say you've used your hybrid to go to the airport, okay, and you've drained the battery down. The car's sitting there outside for 4 or 5 days a week. Will it charge up the battery at that point? I would assume it would.
You'd hope so.
And therefore, to me, that's much better than fighting for, I guess in this case, it's not a plug-in hybrid.
No,
it's just a
regular
hybrid.
So it may charge up your hybrid battery, but your 12-volt won't start it because it's had to keep that working for 4 days.
Yeah, but anyway, I think it is a move forward. That's a good one. All right, let's move on to Steve and our viewer question. Okay, Steve. Steve has noticed that the base model Toyota RAV4 has a 1,500-pound towing capacity, wazoo, but the spec sheet for the adventure grade lists 3,500 pounds, and that's what, excuse me, I think that's what we have in now.
Choked up about it.
They both use the same engine. Some minor mechanical differences. Is Toyota lying about the towing capacity of the base model to try and upsell customers, or can these minor mechanical changes double its towing capacity? That's really not a new thing.
Well, yeah, first of all, you can't buy the base anything and get the max towing capacity. With trucks, anything. You got to upgrade. As far as the RAV4, it does come with an oil cooler, which helps, transmission cooler, which, a lot of your wear and tear issues come through the transmission. So that helps, as well as it has the more sophisticated all-wheel drive system. There's two different all-wheel drive systems with the RAV4. That one has the more sophisticated system, I guess, which uses the rear driving a little more, which helps with towing. I think that would be the major differences. that I can see.
It probably doesn't take a whole lot more than an extra transmission cooler to say you can tow that much more. I mean,
and truth be told, you could probably tow 35 with the regular one, but I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
And you probably avoid the warranty. Anybody else got anything to add?
No, Robinson is the resident tower.
Tow more, you got to pay more. It's pretty much simple. All right. Thanks, everybody. Brian Robinson, Ben Davis, Greg Carlos, and Kyle Scanlon for joining us today for this MotorWeek podcast. Also like to thank our audio engineer, Jim Bigwood, who always makes us sound better than we should. Greg, of course, is our podcast producer, and our podcast creator, Bob Mixter, the man behind the curtain. Thank you, too, for watching MotorWeek on public TV stations and on the Motor Trend cable network, and for listening to our podcast, for viewing our website, for going to our YouTube channel, all of that, so you can be a part of MotorWeek. We thank you very much. Till next time, I'm John Davis. For all of us at MotorWeek, thanks for letting us be a part of your motoring life.
You've been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and State Farm. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at MotorWeek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local TBS station.